So there I was, scrolling through the old YouTube channel, and I thought to myself, it's been a while since I've done anything even close to a bouncer guide. People ask questions about what they should be using and how I had, approach different situations. And I figured, you know what? It's about that time. What is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today we'll be going over, I hate to call them guides because as soon as I make a guide, it gets outdated immediately. But I guess the closest you can get to a bouncer guide in 2024, at least for soaring blades. But if you're new to the channel, as always, I'm Chrono from looking for PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we're going towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So this isn't going to be a super comprehensive guide, and it's also not going to be a super surface level guide. It's going to be very generalistic for the average bouncer player. And again, mostly towards soaring blades. I can give you jet boots in a TLDR format very minimally, but I feel like there's going to be more nuance to jet boots that I really just don't go into. We'll mention a few things with jet boots when it comes to playing soaring blades primarily, but just know that this is going to center around mostly soaring blades, mostly how I play bouncer. And as far as, again, we're not going to go too far into crazy, super high-end specific things. They be very surface level, very generalistic, because honestly, bouncer's not that difficult of a class to play. Speaking of class, we're going to start out with the basics, which is the class itself. One question that I do get quite a bit, is what subclass do I pair with bouncer? There's a few subclass choices you can go for. Realistically, there's only really two that I use now. You can opt for a third or even a fourth, depending upon your situation. So the primary subclass I pair with bouncer is going to be Slayer. Now, this is something I would only really pair with bouncer after you've rolled your add-on skills. So if you're brand new to the game and you're someone who hasn't gotten into the whole add-on skill situation, you may want to opt to go for an alternative option. In this case, I would actually push Fighter. Fighter actually is pretty solid since they've made the change for Fighter's skill tree. Let me see if I can find it. Nope, that's Slayer. Change class skills, go to Fighter. They made it so the defeat advantage against down enemies actually works against bosses, where a lot of times it only counted with like physical downs and elemental downs. It now counts all downs. So it's very, very powerful now. It's definitely a good choice. However, when it comes to crit's still king, as it always will be. So Slayer is going to be the go-to with giving us the ability to not only regen some PP whenever we do crit, and that's on anything that crits, as well as get that extra amount of damage, or the extra amount of crit chance from being a Slayer sub. So very, very great choice. The alternative options you can go for is something like Tector in very slim situations where you can push that extra amount of PB, getting it pushed even higher to go ahead and get that PB in maybe specific situations, but this is mostly towards speedrunning situations. And before the change to Fighter, this is the choice you would go for if you're using something that already had tons and tons of crit. If you, let's say, for example, had the Vershmelt's weapons that had 100% crit, of course, Slayer sub was basically useless to you. Tector sub was a very popular choice in that situation. And that, again, was a time frame where Fighter just didn't work really. It was only on physical and elemental downs. So it wasn't really useful in a lot of boss fights. So you'd go towards Tector in that situation. There was some argument for Gunner back in the day, and there were some niche use cases where the amount of burst PP you would get back on attacks was actually pretty useful. However, I don't really see it being used nowadays, and I've never found a reason to use it personally. If you're really trying to get PP back and you're trying to have just an infinite amount of PP, or even maintain PP even easier, you would use something like Force. Force is pretty solid for this. You're basically have infinite PP in any situations where you're dealing with a PSE burst. So this is like your go-to subclass choice if you're doing PSE farming and you don't have a weapon that's tailored to giving you that. We'll take a look at that with EX skills later. But if you don't have that specialized weapon, then having Force tailored to your sub is kind of what you're going to go for. Outside of that, really, the only choices that you would have that's really even more niche would be Ranger. Ranger's primarily only for one fight in the game currently. Dark Falls Dalian, where you have to split up to fight 4 individual adds that all count as being the same target. For some reason, with having Ranger as your subclass, you still get the damage buff from the weak bullet being on another target. So if you are specifically fighting Darkfall's Dalian or any other target where you would need to attack some other part that your Ranger hasn't light bulleted or weak bulleted, Ranger is a good choice for that, just because you can get access to that extra damage bonus for attacking a target that has a weak bullet on it, even though if you're not hitting the weak bullet. But other than that, that's really the only time. So I would say the only use case is in Darkfall's Dalian, and that's about it. But your go-to subclass choices are going to be Slayer, Tector, and Fighter and Force, realistically speaking. And for most of the time, it's going to be Slayer, and then maybe Force in some certain situation, depending upon your weapon choices. As far as weapons go, I mean, really, we only have a few weapon choices we're going to want to go towards. If you are just getting into the game and you have your free weapon they handed you, use your Argent Cool, that's totally fine. Your goal is going to be to get into an Aerodim. That's pretty much the case for everyone when we get an Aerodim set up and get started using it. And then of course, ultimately, if you are going super high end, you want to go for the Wing Guard at the end of the day. Units, I mean, realistically speaking, everyone's going to do the same thing when it comes to units. You just go for the unit setup that you want. Primarily, you're either going to go ahead and augment for attack striking attack or tech attack. Either one is up to you. I would say go whichever one's cheaper or whichever one lines up with the most classes that you personally play. These days, some people are actually augmenting for all three stats because they play multiple classes, but go with whatever works best for you. As far as fixes go on your weapon, you're going for Fatale. Fatale's just going to be the go-to in most case situations, at least for Bouncer. There are other options for other classes, but this is going to be the case across the board for Bouncer when it comes to Soaring Blades and even Jet Boots. There could be an argument made for Jet Boots for a few other fixes, but realistically, it's going to be Fatale. It's going to be the king, at the moment at least. For units, your go-to is going to be Orgus, or whatever, however it's pronounced. But it's going to be the go-to. It's what you want realistically for everything. Getting closer to that PB faster is actually really, really nice, and it gets you pretty close to getting your PB on cooldown if you have enough uptime. So very, very strong, very useful. The other alternative option could be Performa here. If you happen to have the old, let's see if I still have mine. I think it's in my character storage. Yeah. Where is it? Oh, the Rampaging Blades. The Rampaging Blades do take extra PP because of their potential. So having something like Performa on your gear is actually pretty solid in that situation. We do tend to chew through a lot of PP, so definitely useful to go ahead and have that on your armor if that's what you're going for. As far as how you should augment, I did make a video kind of going into how to start the whole augmentation process. I'll show you guys my gear and what I shoot for. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. But what you're going to do is if you hit Fatale 3 or Fatale 4, realistically, you're going for the potency option over potency floor. That doesn't mean you forego potency floor completely. However, you don't want to lose potency for potency floor. It's kind of the way that you look at it. It's easier to look at for my units actually. So let me pop over to there real quick. As far as the argument on, if you aren't Fatale 3 or Fatale 4, Fatale 3, it's like it's within 1% of itself. So realistically, if you're playing, let's say, more than one class, or if you just value not seeing your number be super low, then I would say stick with the potency floor setup, which realistically is just dropping this wardrobe trial for a Grand Dreadkeeper, and that's really about it. Everything else is perfectly fine. And you can get quite a bit out of the setup overall. But if you are going potency over potency floor, which I recommend going potency over potency floor once you hit Fatale 4 and above, then you're going to be pushing for, getting in that extra wardrobe trial. I'm going to explain why this doesn't really matter for my current setup personally. For units or for weapons, when it comes to EX augments, I did go over this in a separate video as far as what EX augments are going to be useful, but I'm going to go ahead and note a couple of different EX augments realistically here today that Bouncer can take use of, and some that are like kind of interesting, but not really all that important. We're currently using the shortage PP burn setup with hysterical strength. This is just a staple combo, the burn combo. The way this works out is hysterical strength gives you extra damage whenever you have an ailment on you. You also get offensive PP recovery and damage resistance. Offensive PP recovery is really nice for us because we do have our blades that shoot at and hit the target, which gives us back PP. And with extra offensive PP recovery, helps regen a bit more. We get 10% damage resistance and an extra 2% damage, which is very, very nice. Meaning that this is like an overall 6%er, which is really, really cool. And shortage PP burn essentially makes it so when we spend 100 PP, we ignite burn on ourselves, giving us even more natural recovery speed, which recovery speed is really nice because recovery speed basically activates at any point in time, but you can regen active PP. So active PP and passive PP kind of work together in that sense, where whenever you can regen active PP, or active PP like through an attack, passive PP tends to kick in. So even if it's momentarily, it's still nice to have that extra bonus on top of it. And it also removes the burn potency decrease. So whenever you're burned, you actually have a 10% damage reduction, or it's like a 0.9% multiplier on yourself, meaning you do 10% less damage. This removes that burn. It also has a nice extra effect at any time that you have a status element on you. If you proc this, that is overwritten with this burn. There are a few status elements that can't be overwritten. I think it's like the physical status element down and like the HP status element down can't be overwritten. But everything else that you can still attack through can be. So freeze, no go, stun, no go, but confusion, blind, paralysis is different than stun, funny enough. All of those can be overwritten by the burn. Even burn, regular burn, can be overwritten by this burn, which means that you won't have that burn potency decrease. Very, very nice to have. Gradual pressing is okay. But realistically speaking, if this doesn't cause you to get an extra down on a target in a fight, then it realistically did nothing. So it's not terrible. It's not really a dead stat, but it is, it's something you can use here. Realistically, I would prefer something like patient defense, which is really good from a defensive aspect, which will always proc. Basically, whenever you take damage, it builds your defense up to, I think, 25%. And as long as you take damage once every 30 seconds, that remains the entire time. And because we're going to be burning ourselves with shortage PP burn, that is up the entire time, as long as we have active time to fight the boss. Even if you're not fighting the boss, if you want to make sure your burn doesn't go away, you can just waste some PP, and it actually works out pretty easily. Plus, it'll regen right back up with the natural PP regen that you get from shortage PP burn. So, pretty cool combination overall. There aren't really a whole lot of options that are like dead choices for us. Like, it's realistically up to you. The only one that's like this isn't really that useful to us is the tech arts combination one. That really doesn't do much of anything for us because we're not alternating PAs, as you'll find in the next section, where we talk about, or we'll find in the section where we talk about PAs. It's not really going to be all that helpful for you, but everything else realistically can work okay. I already kind of gave my overview on stealth wall and things of that sort. Really doesn't bother us to have threat or not. So we're really not worried about things like dazzling camo, so on and so forth. But everything else is kind of like, it's okay to have it. It's not going to hurt you to have it. It's not going to cause any problems to have it. So it's totally up to you. As far as the gearing process goes, that's pretty much it. You really don't need much else. If you are playing Saring Blades primarily, technically there is something to be said to have a jet boot multied with you, and primarily to use jet boots for downs whenever you have no other resources, just for jet intensity, excuse me, as well as the PB. The jet boot PB is stronger than the Saring Blades PB as long as you're not popping the Saring Blades PB twice back to back. And since Saring Blades PB does not generate pinion, it is better to jet boots PB and to use jet sweep jolt afterwards, since jolt is so powerful. Now, the next section, we're going to go ahead and talk about PAs and show you guys kind of how those work out. So let me pop over here really quick and we'll have that conversation. So Saring Blade PAs are pretty straightforward. This might be part of the reason why I know some Saring Blade players kind of find, Bouncer to be a little bit stale in a sense, because you're not really comboing your skills. You just have a PA for just about every single situation. And you use that PA in its given situation and try to continue to maintain the use of your PAs while using blocks to keep yourself from being stopped as you're attacking. So we've got 4 major PAs. We have Destructive Stork, Rampaging Harrier, Roaring Pheasant, and Raving Falcon. And you can pretty much slot these into a specific situation for each one of them. Destructive Stork, whenever we want to gap close back towards our target, whether it be above or below us, because it now has vertical tracking, makes it much easier to do so. Or if you want to precast, essentially try to save up some damage to have it unleash on a target, we can essentially Destructive Stork towards the target where we think they're going to be, where they're going to actually be, and then once it lands, all of the spins from Destructive Stork happen at one time. You can see right here, if I were to just stand back here, press Destructive Stork, when it lands, all my hits landed at one time. If there's like a target that's about to be, about to pop up and get hit, or let's say, for example, you're fighting Dalian and his ads are off to the side, you can essentially just shoot this at the wall in place, and then when they finally become available to get hit, they get hit with all of those hits at one time. So pretty nice to have access to. Basically, it's our gap close slash vertical repositioning that works very, very well. If you press it a second time, you get a spin. It's not normally that long. I'm going to talk about the tech cards customization a little bit. You get a second spin, but if you let it just run all the way through, you get a big slash at the end. So pretty useful. Like I said, just mostly a gap closing tool slash a vertical repositioning tool. If you need a more extreme vertical repositioning. We have Destructive Stork. Destructive Stork is essentially, wait. Did I just say Destructive Stork was our gap close? Wow. Roaring Pheasant was our gap close. Just take everything I said, apply to Roaring Pheasant. I don't know why I clicked on this, and that's why. That's so annoying. I hate these. Yes, Roaring Pheasant is our gap close. Apologies. Destructive Stork. Destructive Stork is our AoE. So essentially, just a bunch of attacks around us in a circle. Allows it to move around a little bit during this actual attack itself, and pressing it a second time during its attack allows for a little bit of vertical movement, but that only happens once. If you're already in the air when you do this, if we do this a second time, you'll see that we don't move again. We're basically stuck at the same elevation. So pretty cool, really useful. It's nice if you like to say AoE some stuff, then realize that you need single target hits. It's very strong on single target. So pretty useful. Not what you normally would use for single target. This is mostly just kind of like your AoE spam, essentially. Got a little bit of movement on the second half of it, which is pretty nice. And that's pretty much about it. Fairly straightforward. Let's not mess up the names of our PAs, shall we? Moving on, we have Rampaging Harrier. Rampaging Harrier is our primary single target button. You basically press it, and the idea is to let this essentially rock out all the way to the end, even into the blade ring. So if you're single target damage, you're doing single target damage, you want to just let Rampaging Harrier rock out into the blade rain itself. Now there's a few things to know about that blade rain. One, it does not follow the target. So if they move, you lose damage on the rain. Two, it attacks from above. And attacks from above do not always hit weak spots. So if you're fighting something where it's hunched over, or it's going to have like, its head is above it, the weak spot's like on its chest or something like that, Rampaging Harrier may not always be the best choice to go ahead and let the rain rock out. So what do you do in that situation? Well, if you press Rampaging Harrier again, you throw blades out. However, keep in mind you throw those blades out to the left. So it's easy to accidentally miss with those blades. The tracking on them has gotten a bit better over time, but you can actually miss those blades or even throw them into a non-weak spot fairly easily. So just know that when you press it a second time, you can move around. A lot of times I move back or slightly to the right to make it so I always land my shot. So let's say, for example, I know there's something over here. I can go off to the right a little bit, make sure that the blades are thrown out so they don't hit the side of my target, hitting a non-weak spot. But mostly, if you can, you want to let Rare Harrier rock all the way to the end. Last but not least, we have Falcon. So Raving Falcon essentially just shoots these wave projectiles in front of us. These projectiles go through targets, and it's a pretty long range projectile. This is basically our long range poke tool that we have. We can use this to essentially continue to deal damage to a target that might be far away. Maybe that target is going to move away, but then come back to us. So moving towards them with our gap closer, with our Roaring Pheasant. And the reason why I'm going back and changing the full names is because I'm so used to saying things like Pheasant, Falcon, Harrier, Stork. Like I say, half the name for the abilities. And I know that's not super great whenever you're trying to teach someone how to play a class. But using our Falcon, we can poke a target from far away. And if we know they're going to be back, it's easier just to go ahead and use that range and then stay in place than to try to chase after them for them to move again and to chase after them again. Yes, we can run after them, but time to running after them, we're not dealing any damage. And the cool thing about bouncer PAs is they all do a good amount of damage. Like, you're not losing out a ton of damage by opting for this range poke in this situation when, using Harrier would do more damage, of course, but realistically, you're not losing that much more damage overall. Everything kind of like similar to that of Slayer, everything kind of does hit decently okay, to the point where you are not going to lose a massive amount of damage for not using the PA that absolutely best fits that situation. You mostly want to use the PA that fits your situation for how you're dealing with the target. If you know what the target's going to do, so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, I'm doing AoE, cool. I'm using my AoE PA. Oh, I'm fighting a target in single target, so of course I'm going to use Harrier. Oh, but I can't hit his weak spot anymore, so I'm gonna use the second half of Harrier. Oh, well, he jumped away, and I know he's gonna come back, so I'm using this instead. Or he's far enough away and I want to gap close, so I pop this and then hit the second one because I moved past him is a little, too close. So realistically, it's just using the right PAs in the right situations. There is one other ability that we have that doesn't really see a lot of use. Unfortunately, there are some situations where it is useful, but you have the ability to now use the second half of a different PA, effectively comboing them together. You don't do this too often because in most situations, the PA that fits that specific situation is already the better choice for it. Like if I'm going to use Falcon, it's because I'm away from my target and I don't want to move towards him. If I want to gap close towards my target, I'm going to use something like Pheasant to roll towards them itself anyway. In a situation where I am arguing single target damage, I'm just going to let Harrier rock all the way to the end. Worst case scenario, I'm going to use Harrier and then use the second half, right? Not really a situation where these things are crossing over too often. But let's say, for example, your target is, you're doing a long range poke and you realize, oh, well, they're not going to come back towards me. Well, cool thing you can start doing. Oh, well, I mean, in this situation, that doesn't work out. Yeah, there's really not any crossover that you really want to do this too often in. I think there's like one situation for Harrier where if you were to throw out your abilities off to the side, it wouldn't work. You don't want to use the rain, so that's not going to work. So what you can do is you can use the second half of other PAs to kind of fill that spot. So let's say we're using Harrier, like, oh, well, rain's not going to work. So I can use the second half of my Stork instead to go ahead and do some single target damage. That's pretty solid. However, you just don't do that too often. I mean, some people like to play freestyle, so they throw PAs and combinations together if they want to. Again, nice thing is everything realistically does damage. So it's not like it's realistically going to hurt your damage that much to do this. But if you ask me, hey, what PAs would I combo together? I would tell you none. Every PA kind of covers itself with, I mean, think about it this way, with Stork or with Falcon, if I need to get close, I can just hit the second half of it, then gap close towards my target. If I'm gap closing and I need to stop, I'm going, I can press it again. It just, everything kind of covers itself where nothing really needs to cross over between PAs too often. It's just mostly covering for a mistake in a lot of situations that even becomes a conversation topic in the first place. And that really takes care of all of our PAs. We're going to talk about other two skills that we have on our bar here. So you can see we've got Pinion Blade and we have Fanatic Blade. So Fanatic Blade got a change with the recent rework or renewal for Bouncer. Thank God. I used to hate Fanatic Blade before. I thought it was the most brain dead, boring skill we had in the entire game. And now it works basically exactly as I wanted it to. Essentially, whenever you use Fanatic Blade and you're using a PA, more blades fly out and hit your target. So that's how our blades change. So you know how we have blades that fly out whenever you use your weapon action? Yep, well that also happens now whenever you use a PA with Fanatic Blade up. So if we pop Fanatic Blade, start using Harrier, if you pay close attention, see a set of blades came out there, a set of blades came out there. So a set of blades comes out for each one of our sections of our PAs. And it does some pretty awesome damage. Now there is some tech you can use with this. It's very minimal whenever Fanatic Blade isn't up, but whenever Fanatic Blade is up, it actually is pretty substantial damage. Between each PA, weapon actioning will throw out 6 blades as well. So it's actually worth to press your weapon action and just kind of glide in a direction either towards or away from your target, because it does throw out those 6 blades. Basically, Fanatic Blade makes it so whenever you're using a PA, during each part of the PA, it throws 6 blades out. Also, your weapon action will throw 6 blades as well instead of the usual 2. So definitely useful to go ahead and do. Pinion Blade is pretty straightforward. It's a build-up skill. Once the gauge hits maximum, you press it. You just kind of stand here. You're invulnerable during that time frame. You get one big hit. The hit also regens PP for you, so it's really, really nice. And then it goes on cooldown for, 30 seconds, I believe, is Pinion Blade's entire cooldown. And essentially, you want to make sure that you can build up your Pinion as fast as possible, or basically before the cooldown goes away. And here's our PB. Nothing too special. Just a bunch of hits and then one big swing. It's nothing too amazing. Unfortunately, it does not build our Pinion Blade, which I feel like is a crime. And it's what makes essentially Jet Boots PB, even in a situation where you don't land all of the hits on the Jet Boots, it's still better to Jet Boots PB because it does build up a Jet Sweep Jolt. So you want to go ahead and use that jolt. That jolt's a lot of damage, and it ends up netting you overall more damage than you would get if you were to use a Soaring Blade PB. However, if you're, let's say, doing something like Lucille, where you have the Soaring Blade PB 2 times back to back, it is better to use the Soaring Blade PB in that situation than to use the Jet Boots PB. Now, I do want to wrap up the section with a few quick things. I think there's like only one more thing worth mentioning, because I'm sure people will ask about this, or people have mentioned this beforehand. We'll talk about this beforehand as well. The burn combo, people are concerned with getting themselves killed or anything along those lines. To be honest, if you're interested in the burn combination, it's actually pretty solid. There's also an EX skill that auto uses a heal item when you're below half. That does work with this. That burn combo will push you below half, and it should push it all the way back up. So that's totally fine. You can also opt to go with something like Patient Defense. Patient Defense gives you damage reduction, and that'll be up all the time. You'd be surprised how tanky you can be with that damage reduction, 10% from your burn with 25% from Patient Defense. 35% damage reduction, having that up consistently is pretty freaking awesome. I also mentioned beforehand why I didn't really care about using something like Wardrobe. Wardrobe Trial, as it does reduce my my resistances. Well, primarily because I don't really care about my resistances, as I always want to have a status ailment anyway. Now, it does become a problem with things like freeze, things like stun, where I basically lose control of my character completely. Yes, that is an issue, but for every other status ailment, it's actually pretty solid, and I can get away with using that consistently instead of having to worry with something like Spiro Trial, where I would lose PP instead. I want to have as much as I can get a hold of without losing out on any damage or anything else. So this, I feel like, is the better option overall. It is also worth mentioning, I did skip over this in the gear section, that technically speaking, using something like Speed Mail Raw is lesser than using something like Deft Mail Raw or Deft anything really. Deft is going to give you more damage floor, meaning it's going to give you more average damage, meaning it will be stronger overall. However, it is not, in my opinion, that big of a deal to go with something like Speed Mail Raw or anything else, because we're in a point right now where our potency is more valuable to us anyway. You do get the same amount of potency, but the amount of potency floor you get is higher with the Deft options, but it's by 1%. So to me personally, I don't feel like it's going to warrant me spending that extra money as of right now. However, it is worth mentioning that the gear can be better in that circumstance. Also, the burn cannot kill you from this, by the way. I guess I have to show it in a video, because I still have people that tell me, oh, well, the burn, if you get down to 1 HP, you'll die. As you can see, I actively have the burn on me right now. I'm not dying. It will set you up to die, as I've said multiple times beforehand, but it will not be the thing that kills you. Something else will have to hit you for it to kill you. Other than that, I guess I can mention our block. Our block, essentially we get a block while using a PA. You get 1 per use of PA. As you can see, I can't press it any more than that 1, and it refreshes if you actively block something during that block itself. It does count as a block. Because it's a block, anything like a grab does go ahead and go through that block. So while you can block things, the whole point is it's a block and does counter damage as long as you have that point in the skill tree, which we will go over the skill tree in a little bit as well. You do get grabbed out of your blocks as you would if you were playing a fighting game or anything else for that matter. So do keep that in mind. And to wrap this all up, last but not least, our normal attacks. I should start with normal attacks, but we're going to get to them eventually. So our normals are actually pretty powerful overall on Bouncer, and our third normal has a guard frame in front of it. So if you are in a situation where you don't have as much PP as I do, or you're not really managing your PP the best, you have to normal attack, it's not the end of the world. You want like a chunk of PP fairly quickly. Let me just do this really fast. Maybe you're in an AoE situation. Maybe you just are moving around a lot and you're like, oh, I need to get a chunk of PP because like the target's about to go up and you don't want to do a bunch of normals. What you can do is go into a dash and then press normal attack. As you can see, I get a chunk from the normal attack itself, and it's pretty solid damage. So it's as soon as you get to the point where your character is going to start to dash, you press that normal attack, and it's a good chunk of PP. It's something that Bouncers used for a while now, even before the renewal. So pretty solid overall, and that is pretty much it for the general combat section. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to In Town to show you guys the skill tree, as well as the add-on skills that I prioritize, and the tech arts. That's it, the tech arts as well. So go over here. Cord is in my way. That's okay, Cord. You can be in the video, not even realize it. To start things off with our skill tree. So Bouncer skill tree, what I personally take is in front of you here. This really depends on if you play just Soaring Blades or you play Soaring Blades and Jet Boots. If you're playing both, you're going to want to make sure that you're taking a subclass that is going to essentially, I don't say complement, but like you have to really decide how you're going to spread your points out. You're going to lose some points, maybe defeat amplifier to get a couple of things you might need for Jet Boots as well. I primarily play Soaring Blades. I'm just going to show you the tree that I take. You can pick up everything for Soaring Blades and still have points left over. If you're going to grab some stuff from Jet Boots, realistically, the important stuff is going to be boot trick counter or boot trick bounce counter, jet sweep jolt. I don't think jolt cooldown is that important, honestly. But having it there is actually pretty nice to have. So I go ahead and take it for very specific situations. And then of course you want to go ahead and make sure you take, well, you don't really even need elemental decline. Realistically, it's more of a niche situation or elemental decline amplifier. When it comes to playing Soaring Blade primarily with Jet Boots added on, because you're not really using attacks that are going to proc the the elemental boot set at all. So you're not really concerned with elemental boot set, so it's not really that important. I just take the points because you want to have all your points filled out anyway, and everything else that was important was already filled out when it came to Soaring Blades. I guess it's worth mentioning here that our blade counter alternation, which changes our sidestep, very, very nice. If you're going to go through and try to, maybe you're early on trying to figure out, what's important, what should I get right now? Grab physical decline, 1 point, take a point in defeat amplifier and partial destroy advantage, both solid, and then prioritize just grabbing all of the different mechanics that you have. So blade arts alternation, counter edge parry, pinion blade, all of these at least get a point into before starting to sink your points heavily into either one of these. These are basically the dump stats or the dump skills for you to put points into once you have everything else that's important. This does not cost a point, I believe. This is a free. Wait, this costs a point? I thought this was a free point. Wow, that should be a free point. I'm actually surprised, to be perfectly honest, but either way, this just allows you to be able to use melee or tech as your primary scaling. You can just use one or the other. Just make sure you go ahead and go hard into one or the other as far as that goes, but pretty solid, pretty easy skill tree. Skill trees aren't super difficult when it comes to this. Then on Addon Skills. So Addon Skills, you need to make sure you go ahead and prioritize is getting your Hunter add-on skill up to 20. That is your melee potency. That's very important. Fighter skill, get your crit potency up. Again, very important, extra 10%. You want to make sure that you have your bouncer potency, because bouncer add-on skill, everyone really wants this, to be perfectly honest, because the dash and glide PP recovery is fantastic. The ability to regen PP while you're dashing or gliding is basically, it's a level of quality of life that you really don't want to live without once you get it. So at least get a point in here and go ahead and get it taken care of. Slayer does give us that down critical rate up. Crit again is king. It's a 50% crit whenever your target is down. Very, very powerful. And Braver gives us that crit up in general. So that's an extra 10% on top of that as well. Also very, very nice. Everything realistically is pretty solid. Tector is really good with natural PB gauge up. Force is not that important for us, but it's nice for the sub effects. We have natural PP recovery up. Gunner is pretty nice where it's offensive PB gain, offensive PP recovery. Ranger, not really important for the primary, but the secondary is pretty solid, so you want to keep an eye on that. And like I said, mostly everything is important. I mean, Waker even gives us, gives us PP, which we want to get extra if we can. So all of these things are fairly solid. They are fairly useful. You want to go ahead and make sure you get those taken care of as soon as possible. Tech arts is the last we're going to talk about when it comes to bouncer. So my tech art choices. So for Rampaging Harrier, we went with type 3, which increases the attack speed before the variant attack. That means the first 7 slashes are going to go by faster for 2 reasons. 1, I like speed, and this just overall feels better. And 2, the rain is kind of where the most of our damage comes from that skill. So the faster we can get to it, the better it's going to be overall. Yes, the first 7 slashes do a good amount of damage, but that rain is kind of where our primary damage is. The second reason is, and this one I personally have not gone through to confirm myself. This is more about what I have heard, what I have read about from not only the bouncer guides, but as well as, the other math heads that surround bouncer in general. But when using this specific type, it does adjust or change the way that our Fanatic Blade is calculated. So Fanatic Blade has like 2 different variants essentially. It's like a strong variant and a weaker variant based on a PA that's being used at the time of Fanatic Blade being used as well. I guess this is to balance Fanatic Blade to make it so it's not overpowered. You're not picking the fastest PA of your arsenal. But essentially we get the stronger variant of Fanatic Blade while using this specific PA or this specific Tech Arts customization. So nice to have. I like it personally. You can make an argument for the Pinion Blade gauge accumulation, but as I will show you guys in the video after this, just as like the start of the video for some extra commentary, this isn't really all that important unless you are in very, very niche circumstances. So I wouldn't worry about this at all. And I believe personally, type 2 is for people who are primarily playing jet boots, not for playing soaring blades. It allows you to essentially have soaring blades be like your spam as your down PA with Harrier, as opposed to anything else you would do on jet boots. And it just ends up being stronger overall. So it's extra damage on down targets. Pretty solid from start to finish. Pheasant, we went with the increased variant attack duration. So whenever we press the gap close and we press the button again, we spin for longer in place. This allows us to get more damage off, as well as it keeps us in place for making it easier to parry abilities that are coming at us, or I guess block them. That and nothing else really was that interesting. Like again, we don't need extra pinion blade accumulation. This has never really been a problem. Again, I'll show you guys how we'll take care of that in the thing we're gonna check out at the very end of the video, or at the very end of this. It's like I'm basically gonna pull one of my videos where I go into a fight and show kind of how I approach the beginning of a fight itself. And you'll find that this is mostly useless. And then this one just increased the duration and decreased the distance traveled. It felt like it just went slower overall. So it just didn't really feel all that useful. So went with variant attack duration. That's just there was no real great choice to hit up overall when it came to those to begin with. All right, so we're gonna use our Solus rank 2 first clear as an example of kind of how I approach fights. It's pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy. In case you're curious, you're more than welcome to check this out. It's up on the YouTube channel. I'm going to cover myself. I'm in the way. See, you can't see me. I'm in the way. Anyway, and this is specific to Solus. You can actually move at the very start. So I just jump up and start attacking him. Essentially, you want to start attacking as soon as possible. See this cooldown that's going? That's right. Hang on. This cooldown that's going. That cooldown, essentially, you can't use your Fanatic Blade, even though it's not on cooldown. Like you haven't used it yet, right? Can't use Fanatic Blade or Pinion Blade for the first 30 seconds. It's like that for a bunch of skills. But our goal in this first 30 seconds is to get off as much damage as possible and to parry as many abilities as possible to get Pinion in that 30 seconds. So watch our Pinion timer. Watch our Pinion boost up. We're at 17 seconds at this point. Now we want him to use abilities, right? So one thing's to block. We got 10 seconds left. Unfortunately, that laser was not on us. So we are still a little bit off, but our goal is to basically, we want to drain as much PP as possible and get our Pinion off. So in that first 30 seconds, we now have Fanatic Blade and Pinion Blade. That's kind of our goal for the start of the fight, is to block and get as much damage out as possible to essentially try to get that first Pinion off. And we did that and went ahead and went with the Pinion. Honestly, I shouldn't have here. I should have taken the step counters. The step counters are definitely more useful. If Pinion causes you to lose more than 2 step counters, it's a damage loss technically. But this was also my first clear of Malignant Falls. And to be honest, I was just focused on not dying more than getting out the most amount of damage possible, because we very obviously had enough damage to clear it. It was more about just surviving the fights overall. And that's mostly it. Our goal right now is to deal damage, is to block as many abilities as possible, and to essentially press Pinion on cooldown as much as we possibly can. I'm gonna go through the next 30 seconds just to kind of show that off here. But essentially, we're just trying to push out damage. I was using the variant attack there to reposition myself because it allows me to move a little bit. I didn't mention this earlier in the variant and the PA section, so I apologize. But using the variant attack also gives a little bit of iframes too. So you can also use it in a situation where you don't have a block. Let's say you accidentally blocked something else and you screwed up, so you don't have your block available to you. And I actually missed it here. But as you can see, as it's coming off cooldown, we already have Pinion fully built. So technically I can go into Pinion right here. I don't have to wait on these skills here. I'm like essentially just trying to stay alive. I don't want to screw up or get hit by anything. Do we Pinion here, but it's not the best. Of course, the bomb gets away, the weak spot doesn't get hit. Better players will do a better job than I will, not a big deal. But again, we're just going for as many blocks we possibly can. And we're trying to build up pinion. We got 9 seconds left on it. And unfortunately, we lose our target we're hitting. And just as pinion's coming off cooldown, we're getting it again. I'm trying again not to die, not really optimizing my pinion at all. Didn't even see there was a bomb back there. I don't even think I see pinions off cooldown. I think I use it right here. Yep. And set ourselves up to use it right here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's our overall goal in every single fight, is we're just spamming our pinion as often as possible without trying to lose too much damage by doing it. Unfortunately, once you start pinion, you cannot stop it. You can't interrupt it. So you have to go ahead and let it rock out all the way through. Yes, you're invulnerable, but attacks you can't iframe through will still hit you. So any attacks that are orange are still gonna deal damage to you. And of course, you want to use your Phantasy Blade on cooldown to go ahead and help facilitate your pinions and get more damage out overall. Pinion's also going to help you regen PP. It's giving you that extra chunk of PP back to yourself. So you want to make sure you have kind of an overall loop of spending your PP and then using pinion to get it back while dealing more damage. And that's pretty much it. Let me know if I've left out anything in the comments below. Yes, I'm aware Skulls is on the screen, but you know what? I'm gonna leave her there. I'm in the middle of we have a call going right now that she's not at her computer at, and I'm recording, and I totally forgot that was gonna be here on the scene. So yeah, she's just at the end of the video now, doing her little loading face. Enjoy that. She watches my videos, so she's gonna laugh when she sees this. Anyway, thank you to all the channel members. You guys are awesome. I appreciate the support that you guys do have, and keep in mind, again, as always, if you can't support that sort of way, that's totally fine. Just liking the video, commenting, super helpful, super cool, and I appreciate you for doing that. I'm still bad at outros. I do all the YouTube things. It's probably something I forgot. Post in the comments. I'll try to heart it or pin it or whatever it happens to be. Or if there's anything else I want to go ahead and put in the comments, it'll be pinned to the very top. You will also see a link to the bouncer interview, as well as the bouncer guide. So if you do want more in-depth information, feel free to check that out. Either way, I'm still bad at outros. Take care, friends. Peace out.